So a lot of that change that has spurred has led to some of the many things that are going on. I don't know that I can tie a direct line, but certainly all the things that have been going on with the NSA have gotten Google's attention, have gotten everybody's attention. Things have gotten more secure regardless of what led to it. You can talk a lot more about that. But we are really excited to have Stephan Somogyi here. He is the PM for security and privacy at Google. So they're taking this very, very seriously. He's also serving as an advisor to Google Ventures. He's been a part of the Safe Browsing project, as well as end-to-end. And generally, you'll see him talk about how they're making strong encryption more usable. It's one of the topics that came up a lot in the DARS talk. Prior to Google, he also worked with VMware, Infineon, PGP, and was a journalist for The Economist, The Financial Times, and so forth. So bringing kind of a rich and deep background to understanding kind of what people want, while also recognizing that we need to do this in a way that's usable and secure. So really excited to hear from you, Stephan. I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks. So I'm keenly aware that I'm all that stands between you and lunch. Fortunately for you, I am very operationally caffeinated, so I will be speaking as quickly as I possibly can. But first, a word from our sponsor. Ladar kindly mentioned the use of data, and of course, we at Google are all about the data. If you guys haven't seen it yet, we published in early June a transparency report around safer email, around the use of Start TLS, and we are continually updating that. From Gmail's vantage point, we see rather a lot of different MTAs out there in the world, and so we apply our calibers and measure this. So if you're interested in this, there's also data to be downloaded if you want to do your own analytics about this sort of stuff. So I definitely recommend checking this out if this kind of stuff interests you. So yeah, I work on end-to-end. We announced the alpha release, source code only, the same day we announced the Safer Email Transparency Report. Coincidence? We think not. We released source code only for 3 reasons. Since we had brand new JavaScript-based crypto in end-to-end, and we're very, very aware that brand new crypto is actually 2 phrases that you don't like to have in close proximity. Crypto, you really want to have lots of miles on it, mature, old, because it's been hammered on quite thoroughly. So once we had the crypto done, we wanted to get it out under the eyeballs and in front of the eyeballs of the community, because more eyeballs tend to make bugs more shallower. And I'm happy to say that in the time since June, between then and now, we've not found any serious bugs in the crypto. There are little edge cases. There are a couple of standards compliance issues. They're legit bugs, but the process worked. We are actually deriving value and making things more secure. We also don't want to release the final version of the Chrome Web Store until we are completely confident that it is safe to use for at-risk populations, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. We take this responsibility very, very seriously. We are keenly aware that many of our users have a very definite need for a heightened level of email security. And we also know that at the time, as it is today, it's not feature complete yet. And so one of our goals with this entire effort, in addition to making email encryption more pervasive, is to make it more usable. And usability is absolutely critical. It pervades our thinking, which is one of the reasons that we did this last week. It's a slight tangent, but if you haven't seen it, we announced support for the FIDO Alliance's U2F standard, and there's a device here to do a new form of second-factor authentication that actually has strong crypto inside, and it is ever so rare to have something that is both more usable than a 6-digit number, which is just a usability nightmare in second factor, and more secure, because there's actual real crypto in these devices. So this is the kind of stuff that we work on. We look very, very hard to find ways of making things more secure and more usable all at the same time. And this matters to us because, as I said, we have high-risk populations. Unfortunately, the pink doesn't really pop out. So starting in 2012, we started putting up a little banner at the top of Gmail users' accounts when our systems detected that these accounts were under attack by well-resourced attackers. We've publicized this. This is not a terrible secret. And it's something that, again, we believe very strongly and philosophically that this is the right thing to do. We believe that we have an extremely high common denominator of security in general. We've been doing SSL-related work and really keeping that bar as high up as we possibly can for many, many years. But there are some people who need more. And it's precisely this demographic that we also feel very strongly needs to be given the tools to continue communicating securely and safely. So people asked us, It's end-to-end encryption thing. That means that the actual message content is encrypted. Why on earth would you do this? Well, one of our maxims at Google is that we should always focus on the user and that all else will follow. And that was our motivator. We really wanted to do this because we are the people who build the systems, who detect the very concerted attacks. We are the people who build the systems that protect Google's infrastructure from an assortment of adversaries out there in the world. This, to us, is a very logical continuation of what we normally do anyway. So philosophically, this is why we did it. Now, ultimately, in order for end-to-end as a project to be trusted, we needed to allow the outside world to spend time with it, to really understand what it was that we're doing. That was another reason for the source code release. Trust is not always something that you can engender via technical means. And so the community involvement is critical for our success. Fortunately, there are some technical manifestations of trust that were core to our thinking from the very, very early days of the design. And indeed, we don't even trust our own DOM. How many of you have actually looked at the end-to-end source code? Right on. So those of you who will have looked into it will actually see that we designed it and architected it in a way that it is as isolated and self-contained and independent as it possibly can be. That is very deliberate. We wanted to make sure that it was as resilient in the face of potential hostile environments as it possibly could be. Now, we're in the fortunate position that in a context where you're running on a Chrome OS device, where you have a TPM and secured boot and verified boot all the way up into the browser, that creates a very easily verifiable environment to run certain things in. And so these are all factors that play in to when we contemplate architecture and design of this sort of thing. Now, it's tough enough to simply develop secure software on a conventional platform today. When you're running in a browser, there's all sorts of things that you as the developer have no control over. It turns out that JavaScript interpreters do very interesting things with your code. They introduce all sorts of not necessarily entirely deterministic factors that change timings, that induce situations that hardened cryptographers sometimes flinch at. And so we needed to factor this in as we were developing the core crypto library and most of the other stuff that we do, that we needed to be resilient in the face of technical environmental aspects that we simply cannot control. The nice thing about having sunk all this work in the front end is that to date, this has worked really well for us across a variety of JavaScript implementations, so much so that we have heard from various projects out in the open source world that they are adopting our JavaScript crypto library and replacing what they had been using in the past because they liked the way we do what we do. Now, when we announced end-to-end, astute observers pointed out that we really didn't have anything related to key management, and those of you who've been doing this encrypted messaging stuff for any period of time will know that that's actually the hard part. Crypto by itself is relatively commoditized. You need to implement it properly, but that's not where the secret sauce is. These astute observers would be right. We have not yet talked about how we're going to do key management because we wanted to get this out there as quickly as we possibly could, not only to also jumpstart a collaborative ecosystem, which apparently we've been successful at, but again, to have more people become more familiar with the code that we have. The functionality that we released in June was absolutely sufficient to hit that particular target. And indeed, it turns out key management is really quite hard. So this is something that we're very concertedly working on. I don't have any announcements today about what we're going to do, but rest assured this is top of mind. It's also really critical for us to remain transparent. This ties back to the whole trust thing. We will not be trusted. No part of this will be trusted if we are not acting in a transparent way. I'm also going to use transparency in the context of certificate transparency. Those of you who follow the relevant mailing lists or have even looked at the documentation that we put online will have seen that it is our intention to engage in certificate transparency-like stuff in the context of the end-to-end project. This is a bunch of extra work for us, but it's something that we feel strongly is the right thing to do. And we will continue doing stuff that's a lot of extra work if we feel that it is indeed the right thing to do. Now, Ladar put up the piece from Kashmir Hill, from Forbes. Alex Stamos at Yahoo announced at Black Hat in August that they were participating. And indeed, we are delighted to have them work together with us on this project. There are others that are as yet unannounced who have also approached us, who also want to work together with us. So this is exactly what we were hoping to trigger and to have happen. We really want to continue expanding the collaboration, and it's been very gratifying to see people embrace what we've done with the enthusiasm that they have. So with that, I'm going to stop monologuing at you, since experience tells me that often there are questions, and I will take questions. Hence the bullseye. Sure.
Will the state's warning, state sponsor, target, blah, 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 come up if it's the NSA targeting you?
We do not differentiate in our detection systems based on where we think it may or may not be coming from. We select based on what's actually going on with that account. In a lot of cases, attribution is hard. We want to protect our users. That's the goal, first and foremost, and without exception.
So on that last question, I think what he was getting at is, obviously you show that warning when they're trying to break into the account through some sort of brute forcing method, et cetera.
Yep.
Will that warning go up when you receive a warrant or an NSL or a FISC warrant?
So we have a bunch of stuff that we've stated publicly, not only around our specific position about that, but in fact, we have a video. We have this really spiffy animated video called The Way of the Warrant, which documents exactly how we handle the process, at which points we push back really hard. And in fact, we are on record as reviewing these types of situations. That particular message that I put up on the slide is specifically intended in a situation where there is a technical attack being performed on the account.
Other questions?
Really? Wow.
Has anybody ever seen that message? All right, great. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.